Welcome back to the Selectmen's meeting at 6 o'clock. We have a public hearing scheduled for 6, and we had a regular meeting at 5:30. So we're continuing to hold a public hearing on our municipal budget for the year 2026. And I'm gonna turn this over to Matt to explain some of the budget. This is to inform the public of anything that we haven't done in the last public hearing, but we try to have at least 2 public hearings, and we're having an awful hard time to get the public out here to even listen, so this is gonna be a fairly quick public hearing, just because we've got another meeting to attend. So if anybody's got any questions, Dave, have you got anything on the computer that anybody's?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Okay, so we have in the warrant article, going over it real quick here. Article 2, you'll have your election for 2 council positions, because as remember, in July, it starts the council based on the charter changes. You have a 3-year term for the school board, and a 1-year term for the school board, and a water district position. Article 3 is a recommendation, or asking the public to purchase a pumper tanker. Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee recommend not to pass, and that's for $779,000 plus interest. Article 4 covers general government, loans, leases, insurance, workers' comp, Medicare, Social Security, town clerk, tax collector, treasurer, information technology, emergency repairs, broadcasting equipment, municipal buildings, repairs, fuel, hydrant rental, general assistance, and York County taxes. And we are, the budget number that was recommended by the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee is $3,433,964. And just, almost all of these are about 3% or less for adjustments. The target for all the budget articles was 3%, or not to exceed. Any questions so far? Any of the public? Nothing. Article 5, $26,000 for the council salaries. That's $5,000 and $6,000. And that was recommended ought to pass by Budget Committee and the board. And you'll notice all the recommendations of Board of Selectmen, because that's what you voted on for this warrant article in the current charter. Next year, that would be council as well. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate, Article number 6, $275,201 for the assessor, code enforcement, planning board, planning department, zoning board of appeals, and that is a recommendation of ought to pass by the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee for $275,201. Article 7, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $603,024 for the Waterboro Library and Recreation Departments for fiscal year 26, and that is a recommendation from the board and Budget Committee ought to pass.
Just a comment on that one. It's $155,441 for the library. Actually, it's $162,132. And the Parks and Rec is $413,000, but this is almost self-sufficient. Money coming in, money going out. This is the figure that has to go out to pay the bills, but this program is all but paying for itself, so.
Do you happen to have the revenue by chance anywhere near you? Roughly, what was it? Off the top of your head. So, Rec does bring in a lot for the Fund G programs and summer camp programs to offset their expenses. And rates will increase slightly this year. Article 8, to raise and appropriate $2,130,874 for trash disposal, transfer station, and Public Works for fiscal year '26. And that's it. Primarily, there's some Eco-Main hauling fee increases. Other than that, again, the department's kept those budgets very similar to last year, or as much as possible in the operating costs. Last year's was $2,071,032, where Eco-Main went up in that hauling. And that is a recommendation ought to pass from the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee. Article 9, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $757,410 for contracted plowing and plowing services? Sand and salt is not included, and that is for, again, $757,410, and we're gonna be working on our plowing contract, coming up this next fall. And we have a 2-year extension for that potentially. Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee both recommend not to pass. Any questions so far? Article 10. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $118,500 for new equipment in the capital improvement plan? And that is a recommendation of ought to pass by the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee. Article 11, again, in capital improvement plan is $42,000 for building improvements in the capital improvement plan. And there's some library electrical service, seal coating of parking lots, town hall parking lot. And we're putting an extra $10,000 into the reserve account for the building. Again, only $10,000, but we figured we ought to do something. Their target is much higher than that, but we're trying to be responsible for how much we're trying to save. Article 12, $231,831 for upgrading roads in the capital improvement plan. And that is also recommended from the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee of ought to pass. And it's a culvert on Middle Road, paving on New Dam Road, and paving at the transfer station. And probably some other small projects as well. Article 13, to raise and appropriate $1,848,782 for fire department and EMS services for FY '26. And the standard article for the $20,000 over for EMS capital, and that also includes Ross Corner as well, Ross Corner Fire Company in there. And that is a recommendation from the board, and the Budget Committee recommend ought to pass. Article 14, to vote and raise and appropriate $200,000 for contract deputies, police services for FY '26. We reduced that from $262,000 to $200,000 based on estimates, and majority of Board of Selectmen recommend ought not to pass, and Budget Committee has recommended ought not to pass. And some of that.
Just to comment on that one is, it's up to the townspeople to decide whether they want this and whether they feel that the money is being spent wisely. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to holler at any of us. We can give you our point of view, but it's up to you people to decide whether you want to spend that money or not. If you don't spend it, that will offset the county budget.
Any questions? Article 15, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $99,047 for miscellaneous committees, including Old Homes Days and other agency expenses. And that's slightly, last year was $98,241, this year is $99,047. And then Article 16, a couple of these won't need to be there in the future years according to our attorney because of the housekeeping issues that the council will be taking care of. And this is, I believe, one of them as well. Article 16, shall the town vote to allow state revenues from registration fees derived from the registration of snowmobiles to be placed in a separate account for the maintenance of fire roads for the ensuing year and to be appropriated under the direction of the Fire Chief, Public Works Director, and a representative from the Snowmobile Club. and the Board of Selectmen recommend not to pass. Article 17, to authorize the tax collector to charge interest rate at 7.5% per year on all unpaid taxes beginning on the day after the due date. Again, Board of Selectmen recommend not to pass. Article 18, shall the town vote to set the rate of interest at 3.5% on abated property taxes as per Maine Statute 36 MRSA subsection 506A. And the Selectmen recommend ought to pass. Article 19, shall the town vote to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes not yet committed pursuant to 36 MRSA 506, and Selectmen recommend ought to pass.
Article 17 through 19 is something that's state mandated that we put in here for the townspeople to vote on, but in order to do it, it's gotta be voted on, so it's something that you see about every year, or every year.
Article 20, shall the town vote to authorize the public works director with fiscal approval from the town manager to appropriate public funds for emergency winter maintenance for public safety access to private property after determination of emergency by the fire chief, public works director, with funds to come out of winter maintenance account. And Selectmen recommend not to pass. Article 21, shall the town vote to authorize the town council on behalf of the town to apply for and accept any state and or federal grants and grants from nonprofit organizations, donations, or other revenues on behalf of the town for municipal purposes. And the authority to sign contracts and documents and other paperwork and accept the conditions that accompany the grant funds. And Board of Selectmen recommend ought to pass. And then Article 22 is vote to carry forward the unexpended balances in several different accounts from FY 25 to FY 26, so they don't lapse into unassigned fund balances. And there's a bunch of them that is fairly common. I believe the only one that we added new this year, which one was it?
Assessing.
Thank you.
Insurance benefits.
Yeah, insurance benefits for accumulated time buyout, so anything in there that will carry that forward. And assessing the property inspections cost file, partial revals. Obviously, we're not doing a full reval, that she's going and taking pictures and updating records, because we're continuously struggling with the state with the sales data ratio of what they're providing us. So I can read through all of them if you want, but there's a list of them for various different departments. And that's fairly normal for every year. And then there's carry forwards for Old Homes Day, and obviously the TIF district, which is down by Hannaford, is in that carry forward funds. There's some revenue carry forwards, code enforcement for fire detectors. I think some of these might go away at some point for fire detectors, because once we expend those dollars, we won't have that. Metals at the transfer station, some donations from library, recreation, public safety, community garden, and general assistance. Article 23, shall the town vote to appropriate the sum of $4,990,827 from non-property tax revenues to be applied to reduce the property tax commitment for FY 26, based on our estimates for revenues. Miscellaneous revenues from each department, $2,537,327. From excise and rapid renewal, $1,767,000. Rescue billing fees, $300,000. Transfer station fees, $224,850. Cable TV franchise fee, $72,000. The local road assistance program, funding from the state that we get locally, $90,000. State general assistance reimbursement is $3,500. Ambulance subscriptions, $20,000. Again, that was estimated at $4,990,827, and both the budget and Selectmen recommend not to pass. And then Article 24, shall the town vote to authorize the council to appropriate an amount not to exceed $800,000 from unassigned fund or surplus and $150,000 from rescue billing to be applied to the budget for the purpose of reducing property tax in FY '26. And with 150 we had last year, or the current year, and applying it for next year. And we did not use all of the 800 the current year. It's all based on what the auditor recommendation is, but it's been between 600,000 and 800,000. Signed by you on the 1st of April of 2025.
Any questions of Matt on the budget? Hearing none, I will call this public hearing to a close.
Second.
All in favor? Just a reminder, senior luncheon next Tuesday at noontime at the
Lions Club.
Lions Club. Don't go to the Snowmobile Club, it's at the Lions Club on 202. And you've got about 45 minutes to get to the school budget meeting. So, see you all there. Thank you.